Hey, everybody, and welcome to our spring mentorship mini-series, Getting Started with Supplement Protocol Design. And I am Dr. Dan Kalish, and for those of you that are brand new, I'll go over my history a little bit, what I'm all about, why I do this, and then we'll get into a new topic, which I don't think, ever done any publicly wide lecturing on, which is like the most important thing, is how to design supplement programs and all the ins and outs of that. We've had an overwhelmingly enthusiastic response to signups for this, so I guess it was a good idea. Hopefully, you guys can give us some feedback too um, on if you got something out of this talk. So, I've been in practice for 30 years. I've been designing supplement programs for 30 years, and I've been through many phases, and I have observed currently what the common practices are of practitioners designing supplement programs. And I just wanted to convey the information of the past generations that trained me and all the experience that I've had in so you guys can improve your skills in designing supplement protocols. And so in terms of my background, I started several integrative health clinics. I've been in practice, as I said, for 30 years, running big clinics, little clinics. I've devoted the last 20 years or so to teaching practitioners useful skills so they can have a successful functional medicine practice. That's really sort of my life focus and life goal for quite some time now. We have built hundreds of functional medicine practices. I talk to hundreds of doctors every year and hear about their problems and concerns and, you know, their efforts to make this work. And I'm just trying to be a beacon of light here to let you all know that this is something you can do if you want to build a functional medicine practice or improve your existing practice. This is all, kind of tried and true proven stuff that we can do here. And that hopefully I can guide you through this journey just a little bit. And I've worked with the Mayo Clinic. We did a research study. The Mayo Clinic Integrative Medicine Department in Rochester actually took my mentorship class. 5 of them did. One of them took the class twice, which I took as a compliment. And we did a research study together. I've worked more recently in the last decade or so with Richard Lord, who's the scientist that developed much of the testing that we do. He did all the first organic acids work, amino acids, fatty acids, nutrient evaluations. That was all Richard Lord. He developed the first microbiome test for the industry. And so I've been really privileged to have these great teachers and try to pass that information on to you guys. And in terms of the courses that we teach, we're really trying to focus on getting practices up and running, because I've always felt for 20 years that there's not enough functional medicine doctors that are successful, and that I just want to make sure that you guys can make the income that you need, can help the patients in the way that you want, not burn yourselves out, and make this whole thing come together. So our flagship product is the mentorship class, and we're starting one right now this month. If you guys are interested, you can contact our office and set up a phone call with myself or one of my staff, and we can talk you through what this class is really about. But the net result of this class is that people at the end of the year are experts at lab interpretation, and I would put our one-year graduates up against anybody in the field one-on-one. Put an organic acids lab in front of them and say, okay, let's see who's better at this. We graduate really, really, really advanced practitioners after that year. It's an intense program, and you just learn a lot, learn all the tricks of the trade and all the ins and outs of how to interpret labs, organic acids, all the GI testing, adrenal hormones, female hormones, just putting that whole package together with a business model and a clinical model and all the patient information that you need. That's really what the mentorship is about. And it's exciting. It's a really great group of doctors. It's a small group. It's sort of a special group. As a result of constantly looking at the main things that drag practices down, which is high overhead, by the way, and wanting to have you guys not make the mistake of spending too much money that you then have to earn back. It's one thing to get in new patients and do all the marketing. It's another thing to just spend all that money. And I've been there where I've had practices where we were bringing in $1 million and spending 900,000, and I was walking away with 20 or 30 bucks an hour, And so you can have $1 million practice and not make a lot of money. So one of the biggest innovations in the last 5-10 years in terms of you guys saving money is Rupa Health. And they have now consolidated and organized the whole process of ordering labs. And so it's probably the single largest money saver that I've ever implemented in my clinic. And it's a better patient experience anyways. They do a way better job than you could ever do of distributing labs. So if you guys have not set up a Rupa account yet, use this discount code. We'll email you the discount code. So just check your email box like tomorrow, and you get $100 off your first order if you come through the Kalish Institute recommendation. Okay, and it'll get you started. Order a lab on your test on yourself, and get things started there. If you haven't ordered an adrenal stress test on yourself in the last couple of years, just get one and see how stressed out you are. If you want to do a little more deep dive into things, order yourself an organic acids. Okay, so when I think about what makes practices work, which is our goal here, right, Kalish Institute, it's being able to interpret the labs. And let's say that you're kind of getting familiar with that. Then you've also got to figure out how to design supplement programs, not that are based on the lab. Yeah, they're based on the lab, but supplement protocols that people can actually do. And that's where people get tripped up. And so that's what I want to talk about today. There's a whole bunch of steps. You have to learn about each one of these products. You need to have well-developed clinical nutrition skills. If you don't, you take more of our classes and we'll teach you all that stuff. You also need lab interpretation skills. That's the hardest part for most people. Where are you going to learn that stuff? There's nowhere to go learn that stuff. Well, it's here. You can come to my classes, but there's not a lot of other places that are just devoted to lab interpretation. And then there's the the planning of all this, which is the program sequencing and layering. How are you going to overlap certain programs? How long are the programs going to last? What sequence do you do them in? And you can do the exact right set of programs with the exact right products in the wrong order, and it won't work. I know that sounds a little strange, but I don't know what we could think of another example of that in the real world. Yeah, I could think of an example of that. Like, let's say that you wanted to make scrambled eggs, for example, and that was just the thing that you wanted to do that day. And you scrambled the eggs and you put them in the pan, but you didn't turn the heat on. And you're thinking, oh, I'm going to turn the heat on, turn the gas on later. Are the eggs going to cook? No, he just did it out of sequence. It's never going to work. And it's like that with these kinds of programs. If you don't sequence things properly, it's not only not going to work, you can make the person worse. And then you're going to think that the program didn't work because you did everything in the wrong order. And everybody just screws that one up all the time because you have to have some old person who's been doing this for 30 or 40 or 50 years that's made all those sequencing mistakes that just tells you, oh, no. You got Giardia and H. pylori in front of you? Yeah, you better do the H. pylori first. I remember when Timmons first taught me that. I'm like, really? Why? He's like, just listen to me, kid. He used to call me Danny Boy. Just listen to me, Danny Boy. Do the H. pylori. Okay, I'm going to do the H. pylori first. Of course, he told me later on why, but you got to know that stuff. If I'd done the Giardia first, wouldn't have worked. H. pylori first, worked. So sequencing. There are also, in my mind, you should narrow your apothecary down to 45 supplements. When I first started my first practice in San Diego, California with Dr. Glenn, who's hands down one of the best naturopaths I've ever met, even to this day, we had an apothecary. I'm not making this up. There was a whole room in the clinic. It was the size of like a health food store. I counted one day and we had like over 20 different kinds of vitamin C, powder, pills, buffered, unbuffered, this brand, that brand, time release, not, we had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of products. And so the more circumspect you are, the more contained you are, the more you focus on a really core set of things that you need to use, the better you're going to get at doing it. So if you have hundreds of products you use on a regular basis, it's not necessarily going to make you a better practitioner. So I like to try to get people to have 45 or let's say under 50 key supplements. and have a half a dozen or a dozen essential health programs. These are the things that you want to run on everybody. And then, of course, you're going to do extra special things for different patients here and there. We're not cookie cuttering this at all. We're just saying that there's a core set of systems that you better get working. Neuroendocrine, GI, and detox. Once those systems are working, you can go off and do your like neuropathic Lyme disease and mold treatment if you want. But if you don't have neuroendocrine, GI, and detox systems full guns working perfectly, then those advanced treatments are not going to be as effective. And so you need to know what those essential health programs are. That's part of the whole process here. So the product part of this requires learning the basics of clinical nutrition. And that's what Dr. Glenn taught me over the course of our, I don't know, 5-6 years together. There's a long learning curve for that. Can't kind of squeeze it into today's webinar, but that I would encourage you to continue to take clinical nutrition classes and get your skills up as much as you can in that regard. Program design skills we're going to talk about right now, and then programming, planning we're going to talk about right now as well. Where are you going to start? How are you going to layer programs? And just to give it like a simple example, if you start with this basic overall philosophy, neuroendocrine first, get the system working, give the person a few months, then do your GI protocols, whatever they may be. Once the GI is working better, it doesn't have to be perfect, but working better, then getting into detoxification programs, you'll be in really good shape. So it's neuroendocrine first for a few months, then GI, clear out the GI, whatever you need to do. Once the GI is better, but not perfect, you can get into detox. And so you sequencing, just doing that alone is enough to start to make a pretty big difference. So then on the product understanding, again, you really do have to read and study a lot about magnesium and B6 and understand how these things work in the body. And it's like taking a physiology class in general, okay? Important. The program design part is more about how you combine products so that you're addressing entire body systems. Hey, this came up yesterday in class. So we had a student that submitted a lab in the mentorship class, and the patient had high lipid peroxides. That means that their lipids were getting damaged. They had a massive mitochondrial problem, not so good. Their oxidative stress markers were super high. And so we're thinking, what's one product that you could use that would knock out all of those problems? Something that would protect the lipids, knock down the so it has to be fat soluble. That's what I'm trying to say there, right? So if you have lipid peroxides high, you have to use a fat soluble product. It's not going to work, right? Because you got to get the product to where the fats are. And if it's water soluble, it's not going to do anything for your lipid damage. So it need to be fat soluble, need to protect lipids. It needed to be a massive antioxidant. And what the heck, maybe something that is completely responsible for ATP production at the same time. And see if anyone can type in the answer on that one. Well, that's pretty close. Robert got really close. And I would take that as an accurate answer. He said glutathione, but the answer was CoQ10. So I'm like, hey, just give her CoQ10, 200 milligrams twice a day. That's going to knock out the lipid problem. It's fat soluble. Last time I checked, it's going to get in there and protect your lipids. It's going to crank up that electron transport thing, that's the electron transport chain as part of the mitochondria where the person was having problems. And it's going to lower the oxidative stress, all in one product. So when you're talking about program design, one of the things you can do is try to figure out single products that at therapeutic dosages will have multiple effects. And then you can also use combination products that are kind of pre-designed for you, where some scientists spent a couple months designing like the best thing for your mitochondria or the best thing for your yeast treatment. And those combination products are like heaven because you didn't have to sit down and develop that thing. Somebody sitting at some lab at one of the supplement companies did that for you, okay? And then once you've got that part down, then the planning part I think is really the hardest part. How long are you gonna do these programs for? Which one's going to come first? Can you overlap them? Like, can you do that can you do the H. pylori and the Giardia program at the same time? No, never do that. Have I tried that a lot? Yeah. Does it work? Yeah. Does it always work? No. Does it backfire a lot? Yeah. So don't try that one. So I would like ask Timmons, like, can I do the H. pylori and Giardia program at the same time? He'd be like, no. And then I would just go out and do it. And then it wouldn't work. I'd be like, oh, well, maybe he was right about that one, So now 3 body systems. neuroendocrine, GI, and detox. Neuroendocrine, GI, and detox. And why in this order? Well, because the neuroendocrine programs shouldn't cause any side effects. We're talking about adrenal support, mitochondrial support, general hormone support. Shouldn't have any side effects from that stuff unless something's really wrong with the patient. If they do have side effects from neuroendocrine support, then you've got a really tough case on your hands. And they make people feel better. They start to feel better. They start to get stronger. Because when you do GI treatments or you go after detoxification pathways, those are very taxing treatments. A beat up, stressed out, depleted catabolic body is not going to do that great if you push it really hard and jump right into some, GI killing, microbiome killing program, where you're not killing the microbiome, but you're killing Giardia or H. pylori or whatever. That could make somebody who's already sick even sicker. So you want to build up the body in the beginning so that when you hit with the more important programs like GI and detox, the person doesn't crash. And you could say that detoxification and getting rid of environmental toxins is the most important treatment. I would agree with that. And some people would say the GI treatments are the most important. I would agree with that too. But you don't have to do the most important thing first. In fact, in general, you shouldn't. And that's true for a lot of things in life. A lot of things in life, you don't do the most important thing first. If you're meeting a new person and you like them, you don't like ask them to marry you on the first date, right? You wait and you get to know the person. There's a stage, and maybe that's the most important part of your relationship, but there's a stage when that is right. And should you do detox before GI? People argue about that one back and forth, but I think the neuroendocrine as a warm up and then GI and then detox, I think that sequence works the best from what I can tell. You're the least likely to cause side effects and most likely to get a successful result if you follow that sequence. Now let's talk about, so this is an assignment for you guys. Go ahead, not right now, but like today or tomorrow later on, write out like your top 45 products. Like what are the 45 supplements that you think are the most important? And write them in the order in which they're the most important to your practice. So the first one is the most important. So if someone came in and said, come into your office and said, look, everything's got to go. You've got 45 products you can use the rest of your career. What's your choice there? Get to your core supplements. And then make sure that you have a 1 or 2 minute explanation for each one of those products. And if you're not at this stage yet, you got to stop and do this right now. If you have a couple hundred products, but you don't know exactly how they really work, it's not a great place to be in. So 45 products, a 1 or 2 minute explanation. So for you to explain like the purpose of, I don't know, vitamin B6, if you don't really know what it does and how it works, you might have to spend a few hours studying about B6 so you knock that one out. And then go on to magnesium, and then go on to CoQ10, and whatever your 45 are, so you can communicate to your patients about why you're using them. And along the road, when you're reading about CoQ10, you may realize, wait a minute, I didn't know CoQ10 was solely responsible for carrying electrons from the second part of the electron transport chain to the third part. I didn't know that. And they're like, oh, I guess I got to include that in every one of my mitochondrial programs. That makes sense now. So it'll help rewire your brain in a way so you see the multiple uses of given products. Now, study guide to mastery. Pick the 45 supplements and master them, right? So you can explain them. You know that you've mastered them when you can explain them in a minute or two to a patient. Then you want to move on to health program design based on some kind of model or system. I'm giving you a system that I've used for 30 years now. If you don't like it, that's fine. You can do a different system, but you need some kind of a system that you have so you're coherent in your explanation to patients. Are you going to rotely follow that system? No, not at all. But it's going to be something that's like the basis of what you do, so that when you have a philosophy, you have a stance on all this. And then, I mean, honestly, you never ever follow that system exactly right because everybody's different. You got to modify it, but at least you have a system to modify. You then need to learn to sequence and combine the programs and correlate them with the lab findings and then treat symptoms versus the underlying cause. So each program, I think this is one of the most important concepts in the whole class today. Each treatment needs to either address patient symptoms or the underlying cause. So when I was first getting trained by Glenn, he taught me how to use clinical nutrition to eliminate symptoms, skin problems, constipation, gallbladder problems. I mean, he's a really good naturopath. And I learned a lot, 3 or 4 years of treating symptoms, and such that when a new patient came in, I could usually get some symptomatic relief within a few weeks, sometimes within a few days, by prescribing symptom relieving supplement programs. And then I learned about functional medicine. I was like, oh, wait a minute, we're supposed to be treating the underlying cause. And so I seem like a nice person, but I kind of have like an underlying personality defect of arrogance a little bit. If you get to know me, you'll be like, this guy's a little arrogant. So I got a little arrogant at that moment in my life, and I was in my 30s, so give me a break. And I was like, no, like I'm the underlying cause treating doctor, dude. We don't treat symptoms no more. Like that's out. And so I actually did this for a few years. People would like be symptomatic, and then I could have just given them a friggin' enzyme, and they would have been better. And I didn't. I was like, no, I don't treat symptoms. I see you have Giardia. We're going to go for the underlying cause. And so I made that mistake for a long time of only treating underlying causes. And that's just ridiculous because that's not treating the person. That's like my own personality defect of thinking I'm some superior knowledge person. So you want to be able to treat symptoms aggressively in the beginning, get the person symptom free, as you're also addressing the underlying cause. That's the trick to this, balancing those two things out and not going to either extreme. You don't only want to treat symptoms because then people don't address the underlying cause. But if you only focus on the underlying cause, you're not addressing the person really. You're addressing like some model that's theoretical. So you should have, by the end of the month, every one of your patients feeling better. Then you're balancing this right. And then you should be getting to um, what your goals are in this whole thing, which is the underlying cause correction. Now, on the neuroendocrine side, in case you're wondering what I mean when I say that, I could define it for you here. Adrenals, neurotransmitters, mitochondria, sex hormones, and thyroid. That's neuroendocrine. Those are the kinds of treatments. On the GI side, oh my gosh, that's a long list. I don't have time to go through each one of these, but it's basically antimicrobials and anti-inflammatories, prebiotics and probiotics, that kind of stuff, and enzymes. So you need to kind of learn all these products to master neuroendocrine. You need to learn all these products to master GI. I'll just give you a second. If you have your cell phone, just take a picture of that one in case you don't want to memorize that. Click. Okay, got it. And then this one, click. This is the minimal stuff. This is like, of course, there's a lot more than this, but these you should know inside and out. Remember, each one of these products, you should have like a 1 or 2 minute explanation for your patient for. You should really know how they work and why they work. And then on the detox, that's the list there. So this is my minimalist list of things that I should know. In the Glenn years, did I learn about all the different 20 kinds of vitamin C and how he used them for cancer patients and all this kind of stuff? Yeah, I did. But is vitamin C on this list? It should be on the adrenal list. Yeah, there's vitamin C. It's on the list there. But it's not like 20 different kinds. It's like one kind. Okay, so that's my list. You should, if you don't like this list, make up your own. If you like this list, use it and modify it, so you have some basis of what you feel are really the most important things that you need to know inside and out and do over and over again. Okay, so now let's talk about labs for a moment. Now, individual lab markers or sometimes patterns of lab markers are going to turn into supplement recommendations. Then that supplement recommendation has to get turned into a program. So you're putting multiple supplements together. And then you have to take that program and put it into a health plan. And so, oh my gosh, so much to say about this one. But the entry level is just knowing, okay, homovanillinic acid high, or let's say low, means that the person is low in dopamine. I need to give them tyrosine. Okay, you got that. And then you get to the programmatic level and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to support their brain. What else does the brain need to make dopamine besides tyrosine? And then you go through that list. So now you have not just an individual nutrient, but now you have a program for the brain. And then you're thinking, okay, well, I'm going to give the person all the things they need to raise their dopamine, but now I got to turn that into a plan. How else can you raise dopamine? And what's my favorite way to raise dopamine? Does anybody know? Like, how could you raise dopamine instantly without using, now, we're not talking about cocaine, we're not talking about Adderall, we're not talking about anything that's, you're not even putting anything into your body that's bad. How could you raise dopamine like instantly? You could definitely do exercise, but you know what works even better and faster is just a cold plunge. Just jump into a bucket of ice water or a bathtub with ice water in it. Your dopamine will just go like, wow. It goes up, I forget now, something like 400% or something as soon as you get into ice water. So that's when you're getting to the plan part. So you got the tyrosine, you got the cofactors, maybe you got some Acuna in there if you want to be fancy, and then you're like, let's do a cold plunge, or let's have you do, a high intensity workout twice a week, or whatever it is you're going to do to get the plan together. And the plan implies that you're using lifestyle changes to make the supplement plan work so that you don't make the patient dependent on the supplements. So if you're providing all the nutrients from which we make dopamine, and then that human being is getting in a cold plunge for 3 minutes, 3 times a week, 4 times a week, let's say, they're going to be making a lot of dopamine. If you get into the cold plunge and you don't have enough tyrosine, it may not work. If you just do the tyrosine, but you don't stimulate the need to make dopamine, it might not work either. So exercise, cold plunging, saunas, eating right, not eating, intermittent fasting. You want to make sure that your health plan incorporates the supplements. Plus, there's always got to be a lifestyle change that goes with the product. So like the easy ones I'll just list off are there an adrenal case, the adrenal program, DHEA, what's the adrenal program? Here it is. DHEA, pregnenolone, licorice, all these things, and then meditation so that they can de-stress. Or it's a GI protocol, and it's a anti-yeast, anti-candida program. And guess what? You have to stop eating sugar for a month. Yikes! That's the lifestyle change because sugar feeds yeast. Or you've got a person with a microbiome problem and the commensal bacteria are low. What are you going to do? Give them a bunch of prebiotics and probiotics and say, okay, you're going to have to start to incorporate beans into your diet. A half a cup to a cup and a half of beans every day. Start slow because it might give you gas in the beginning. That's the way to get your microbiome back. In fact, I was at the local organic grocery store the other day and I was unloading my cart in a very innocent way. I wasn't being obnoxious or anything. And the young person behind the counter looked at me like I was crazy. And she said, why are you buying all these beans? And I realized, wow, I looked around. I was like, whoa, I guess I'm the only person in this whole store that's buying beans. And I wanted to get into my like prebiotic talk, but I didn't think it was a very appropriate moment to do that. So I just said, oh, it's just really, they're really healthy for you. And I really like them. And she's like, oh, okay. But key to establishing the microbiome, beans, the fiber in beans is what these bacteria need. If you don't eat beans, your microbiome is going to be screwed up. So how hard is that? Detox, the most obvious one, and I always use this, is your liver's not working very well, Sally, and we've got to really, get you on the N-acetylcysteine lipoic acid, get this whole thing working out. And to take the stress off your liver, we really need to have you stop all the caffeine and alcohol that you're consuming for like at least 90 days while you're doing this program. It doesn't make a lot of sense to be detoxing your liver and then you're putting caffeine in, which is very hard for your liver to break down, and then you're putting alcohol in, which is really hard for your liver to break down and damages your liver. So again, you're getting a health program or health plan in place, a lifestyle change in place because of a lab. And your impact, everybody knows that they should stop caffeine and everybody knows that they should, not drink alcohol much. But everybody needs a reason to do that. And having a lab that shows your liver detox pathways are screwed up and then spending $275 on supplements every month to clean out your liver, that's a really good reason to stop caffeine and alcohol. And guess what makes them feel better? The lifestyle change is really what we're after. We're not like supplement dealers. I didn't sign up as a functional medicine doctor. I wasn't like in the back of class going, yeah. I want to like be a supplement distributor. That's kind of my life goal, No, the whole point is to change people's lives by changing their lifestyle. That's what we do. But when you get a lab that shows their liver screwed up, and then you sell them a bunch of really expensive liver detox products, which are going to make them better, and then you let them know it doesn't make sense for you to retoxify as we're detoxifying. that makes no sense at all. Then the patient's like, oh, okay, yeah, all right, I can do that for 90 days. And guess what makes them feel better? It's not really the supplements. They help a lot, but it's the lifestyle change that you're after. And so you're just doing all these shenanigans with the labs and the supplement programs to get a health plan together, right? That's the third part of this. Where's that slide here? Oh, I lost it. Because it's the, yeah, supplement recommendation program is the combined supplements, and then the health plan is when you put down the hammer and say, this is a lifestyle change I want you to make based on your lab. Okay, let's see here. Program design concept. That's complicated. I've never done this lecture before, so I'm going to skip a few slides. I'll leave them up there for a minute. If you guys want to listen to the recording, you can at least look at them. But let's see. I may be a little bit off on my timing here. Yeah, let's talk about this. Okay, so products into programs. So you have to combine products. You got multiple products based on the labs, and sometimes it's multiple labs. So like you might have an adrenal lab. This just happened in the mentorship class the other day too, like on Tuesday. An adrenal lab that well, for sure you have to use vitamin C for the adrenals. So vitamin C is kind of on your list. And then you get to the oxidative stress part of the organic acids testing, and you see they need water soluble, not fat soluble, but water soluble antioxidants are required. And you're thinking, CoQ10 is out because that's fat soluble. Vitamin E, no, I can't do that, it's fat soluble. But vitamin C, water soluble. So now you got the vitamin C in the program for the adrenal part, and then wait a minute, I could use that for the water soluble antioxidant thing too. What are you going to do? Just increase the dose a little bit. Maybe go up to like, just say 2,000 a day for the adrenal part, maybe another 2,000 a day for the oxidative stress part. So maybe give them 3, 4, or 5,000 a day of vitamin C, and that knocks out both markers, one product. You could even use a powder if they don't like to take pills. So combining products across labs so you can get multiple effects, that's really super helpful. We talked about sequencing a lot already, neuroendocrine, GI, or detox. That's my order. If you don't like that, make up your own order, but have a model that you follow. If you always do things differently on every patient, it gets kind of confusing. Are you going to vary the model? Absolutely. We had a patient in the mentorship yesterday, and the doctor gave her the adrenal program, and the adrenal program made the patient really sick. So we're like, oh, crap, that's not good. So then we talked about it in class, and we agreed that the doctor was going to stop all the adrenal products and support that person's liver for 2 or 3 months such that they could handle the adrenal hormones and get back to that later on. So you're constantly adjusting the model and modifying things. It's just that having a place to start makes a big difference. Now, the quantity of products can vary. Some patients will be happier if you give them more product. Some patients are taking 40 supplements a day, and when you give them, 27 supplements a day, they're like, wow, this is like a 35% reduction or whatever. Some patients never take any supplements, and 5 products a day just blows them away, and they're like, I don't think I could do this. So you really have to discuss what quantity that person can handle. And then dosages. What I see the most consistently in programs that are poorly designed is, number one, there's too many products in the program. The doctor clearly looked at like a GI test, and then they're giving them enzymes and stomach acid support, and they're giving them like 3 leaky gut repair products and 2 of it, and it's just like this. It's every single product that the lab suggested is in the program, and that is not what you're supposed to do. That is absolutely not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to pick the ones that are the most important. And then in addition to that mistake of trying to do everything at the same time, the second most common mistake, and they're kind of tied together, is that every single product is underdosed. Like just drives me crazy. I can't tell you how crazy this makes me. So I get patients that come in and like, I have H. pylori, I'm doing this program, and I look at it, I'm like, wow, well, that would have worked for like a squirrel, like you're a human being, you weigh like 200 pounds. You got to take a decent amount, the right amount the dosages have to be adjusted appropriately so they're clinically effective. You can't look at the label strength and recommend that. It's not really, the label strength is some made up thing that companies do for whatever reason. That's not therapeutic dosing at all, ever. So you have to look at the lab, understand the therapeutic dose, and hone it down to like the key ingredients and the key products that are going to really move the needle the most. So as you're looking at your programs, if you're looking at a GI test, just think, okay, what are like the 3 most important things on this test that I should address? And then how can I get to a therapeutic dose? How can I just crank things up so that something's really going to change? And for example, if you have, let's say, dysbiosis, a yeast overgrowth, and H. pylori on the lab, and they have an enzyme problem and a gallbladder problem and a butyrate problem on the lab, if you just knock out the yeast overgrowth, 3 or 4 of those other things are probably going to get better. Okay, and that's back to the whole sequencing thing, finding out what you think are the most important thing and going after that, not trying to treat everything all at the same time. And don't give anybody don't ever give anybody a product that's underdosed. If it's underdosed, just take it off your list. Just don't even do it. You know, just wait and do it later. Like vitamin D really bothers me. So like if you have a low vitamin D with a case, you got to give a therapeutic amount of D. If you just give them a D that's at like 1,000 IUs or whatever, you know, it's never going to raise up their D. I mean, it's not going to be harmful, but don't bother with a whole separate bottle of D if you give them 1,000 IU. Just give them a multivitamin that has a D in it. And when you're ready to use vitamin D, use a therapeutic amount, but just take a deep breath and relax and put off certain parts of the project so that you have a sequence again to all this. Okay, so then we're talking about a functional medicine health program. Oh my gosh, these slides are so long and intense. Look, you guys, I'm sorry, this is like a 3-hour lecture. I don't know what I was thinking. Sorry, I tried to put everything down here. We're not going to get through all these. It's going to annoy some of you, but I'm going to try to do a good presentation, and I apologize. It's the first time I've ever done this. But while I'm procrastinating, let me get a glass of water here. Stay hydrated. For those of you that joined us late, we're starting a mentorship class at the end of this month. If you're at all interested in really learning how to do this stuff, sign up for this class, or at least give us a call and talk to us. You know, you can get on my schedule. I talk to lots of doctors about the class and see if it's a good fit for you. If you haven't started using Rupa yet, for sure you should use Rupa. Those are our little key points here. I'm not going to get through all these slides, but let me do all the, maybe we can do a second one of these someday. We'll do another, I'll do the second half of this someday in the future. You guys can come to that. Let me just do it properly though. Okay, here we go. Treatment process flow. Well, that's complicated. Let's skip that one for now. Yeah, so let's do this one. Okay, because this will help you a lot. Because I want to save you guys time too. So for each individual supplement that you give them, remember you need a 1 or 2 minute explanation. So that explanation needs to include a few things, or you're going to get your time chewed up by people asking you inane questions. So when you're describing the supplement, you can tell them what it's for, obviously. If it's CoQ10, it could be for a million different things. You tell them what it's for in relation to what's happening to them, not generally what it's for, you know? So they don't need like a whole dissertation on the many uses of CoQ10. It's just like why that's going to help them. So you have a history of heart disease, you're worried about having, you know, a heart attack like your parent did when your parent was your age. Well, let's just, you know, look at the lab. You need the CoQ10. This is really good. It helps protect your heart, you know. So you don't have to explain all the other roles of CoQ10. Just explain how it relates to them specifically. So it seems like, oh, this is just the right thing that I need, because it is. That's what we call personalized medicine. But everybody needs CoQ10, but for different reasons, you know. So then when the product is indicated, you're going to explain that. You're going to say, oh, you know, we have this marker. It shows that your mitochondria are not functioning very well, and CoQ10 is a vital part of mitochondrial function, so we're going to recommend you take the CoQ10. If there is a contraindication, you can mention it. And then side effects. Now, this one's really important. So I've sort of boiled down my side effect spiel to like one comment, and I make this every time with everybody, and this really just saves the day all the time, which is the comment is, this product should only make you feel better. This product should only make you feel better. If you have any kind of side effects or problems, which we don't expect at all, stop and contact the office. So you don't want to put into the patient's head that this is like a risky thing that's going to cause side effects. But then if there are side effects, you want to know right away so you can mitigate things. Okay? So don't list out what the side effects are, because then some people just grab onto that and start to think about it. However, if you're giving out something like DHEA, I use DHEA with a lot of people because a lot of people are low in DHEA. So if you prescribe DHEA these days, things being the way they are, by the time the person has walked out to their car, and they're probably in the car and they started it, but they haven't driven away yet, they're on their cell phone and they've Googled DHEA, and then all these things are going to pop up about all the horrible things about DHEA. So if you're giving a product like a hormone that's even remotely controversial, then you should go through why you're doing it and why it's safe, so that if they do Google DHEA, they're like, oh, well, my doctor already told me about all this stuff. So like, for example, with DHEA, you would say, look, DHEA in high dosages is actually, could be potentially harmful. It can be potentially dangerous. It's all dose dependent. And then I do my water spiel. I like this one. I don't know why. So I'll say, there's something called hyponatremia, and people are like, I never heard that. So every year when they like have the Boston Marathon or the New York Marathon, somebody dies during the marathon from drinking too much water. You can actually die if you drink too much water. Now, does that mean drinking water is bad for you? No, drinking water is like, dehydration is the most common nutritional deficiency. Dehydration is the most common nutritional deficiency, and many, many people are dehydrated. Most people in the United States are dehydrated. But so drinking water is good for you. But if you drink too much water all at the same time, it can actually be life-threatening. So DHEA, large amounts, all kinds of things can happen. We're using what we call a physiological dose. We're using an amount that your body's not making. We're just replacing what's missing here. It's the same explanation with, I don't know, magnesium. Magnesium. We're just replacing the magnesium that's missing from your body. There's nothing harmful about replacing something that's missing. If you take too much vitamin E, of course it could be harmful. If you're replacing the amount of vitamin E that's missing, there's no potential harm that could ever come from that. So if you're only designing supplement programs that are based on labs, you're only going to be replacing things that are missing, and it's virtually impossible if you ever hurt anyone. Let's see here. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry about these slides. I sat down for a long time and wrote all these out, and I thought I had like 6 hours to talk to you guys. But I'm trying to hit the ones that I think are the most important. I didn't really think anyone would sign up for this webinar, but a lot of people did. So we'll do this again. Don't worry that I'm skipping some things here. I'll do another one of these. I had no idea this would be this in demand, let's say. I'm trying to hit the things that I know are going to happen to all you guys. Oh yeah, this one is important. This comes up in class all the time. Okay, let's go through this. So again, I don't know, it's all fresh in my mind because I was just teaching this week. And it was that same patient I was talking about, the one that reacted to the adrenal program. So if you give somebody a well-intentioned adrenal program and it's all based on the labs, and you're thinking this is going to work, and then they have side effects from it, there's a couple of categories that you should be able to put the person in. I wish I had known this 30 years ago. This would have saved me a lot of stress. So one category is that they're just sensitive to the world in general. They're sensitive to noise. They're sensitive to other people's feelings. They're sensitive in an airport. They're energetically sensitive. They're spiritually sensitive. You can ask the person. I've had a lot of people tell me, oh yeah, I see ghosts all the time, or there's a spirit animal that's on my left shoulder. I mean, a lot of people are really sensitive to the energy world, the world of, beyond the realm of humankind. And a lot of people are just sensitive to emotions and feelings, and they feel other people's feelings. And those people can be really sensitive to supplements, not because anything's wrong with their body, but just because they're sensitive to stuff. And it's easy to find these people. Just ask them, are you really sensitive to things? When you walk through an airport, do you get kind of creeped out because of all the stress, or, just figure that part out. And in that kind of person, it's normal to just keep the dosages really low. They don't need much of a push on any of these things. And so you want to try to figure out those people early on. Now, there's another kind of person, though, like my adrenal hormone person that I was talking about earlier, and they're sensitive. That person was sensitive to the adrenal supplements um, because their hormones and their liver's not working. And even a tiny bit of DHEA and pregnenolone was enough to make this whole huge skin problem happening. So that's different. That's not a person who's internally sensitive by nature and energetically tuned in and kind of psychic. That's a person who's sick and their liver's not working right. So when you have a sick liver not working right person and they're having side effects, you got to drop everything. Don't try the gut programs, that's going to make them worse. Don't try the adrenal hormones, that's going to make them worse. Even mitochondrial support might make them worse. Just try to support the liver detox pathways with whatever products they can tolerate and get them through that next phase. Okay. If you have the lab work, you might be able to hone it in. You might see that there's a methylation defect or a glutathione defect, and you might be able to identify, oh gosh, this person just needs folate, and that's going to really change things. Or this person just needs glycine, and that's really going to change things. So sometimes the labs will help guide you to what that solution should be. Now, also when you're trying to assess, how to get the dosages so that they're adequate, you have to make sure that people are okay swallowing pills. So the programs that I've been designing in these last few years have been pretty intense, and so I'm doing a lot of powders now, because I can get like glycine, methionine, magnesium, vitamin C, glutathione, even B vitamins in a powder or a liquid, and just have them do a drink once or twice a day. And so when my programs get above a certain number of pills, I just try to switch to powders. Now, some people love the powders. Other people hate the powders because they hate the taste. This came up in my practice the other day, and she's just like, oh, I can't handle the taste of any of this stuff. So I'm like, okay, do you want pills? She's like, oh, I love pills. I can swallow any amount of pills you want. That's not a problem at all. So you should check in with people and see. Some people are just happy to swallow a handful of pills. Other people will be really thankful if you start to use powders, even though they taste a little offensive. And then also checking in with patients around multiple programs running. So when I see some of these programs from other doctors coming into my practice, patients coming to my practice, and they're like, oh, I was seeing this other doctor, and here's what I was doing. It's just like, wow, that is so much stuff, and none of it makes any sense combined. There's certain times in life when you can just see that things work together, and then you can see that things don't work together. If you've ever been to like a buffet, everybody ends up in Vegas at some point for a conference. I don't like going to Las Vegas buffets. It's not like something I, do regularly, but I have been to them in the past. It's been probably 20 or 30 years, but you're at a buffet, and it doesn't have to be in Las Vegas, it could be anywhere. And you're like, are you going to take like shrimp and crab and some sushi and some Mexican food and some pasta? No, it's just disgusting. You wouldn't do that. And so with these kind of programs, you don't want to mix things around too much. It's not good for the body. You want to pick projects and then complete them and then move on to other projects with some overlap. But you should have some conceptual framework as to why you're doing that. So if you're not sure what I'm talking about here, then just stick with neuroendocrine bleeds over to GI. And then as the GI programs are fading, you don't have to finish them, but as they're fading, coming to the last quarter of their life there, then you start in with detox. And so the person might be doing, like in my practice, the person's always doing an adrenal program and then introducing the GI products, and they're running those two together. And then as the GI program is fading out, then we're doing the detox. So they're never doing more than like 1.5 programs, maybe 2 programs together, and not for very long. They're never doing like 2 programs or 3 programs at the same time for 3 months. For some people, they want to just get things done and they have a short attention span for taking supplements. It could be a professional athlete and they're about to start their sport, their season is about to start. And they're just like, I just want this all done by June. Okay, that's just, or a female that wants to get pregnant. She's like, I really want to get pregnant in the fall. So just kind of just cram things together and get them done as quickly as you can. Once in a while, you're kind of forced to do that. But as much as possible, it's going to be to your advantage to try to spread things out a little bit. You'll have fewer side effects. You'll understand better what's affecting what. When you run multiple programs, you can't tell what's actually working and not working. Now, some people, their cost is not an issue and time is a big issue, so you are forced to run programs together. Then you got to warn those people, hey, we're going to be running this neuroendocrine, GI, and detox programs all at the same time. It may be difficult to tell what's going to actually be the one that helped you the most. And the person is going to have to agree, well, that's okay, I don't care. As long as it works, as long as I feel better by June, I'm going to be all right. The other thing is that spreading things out gives you more time to do the lifestyle changes. So that's usually better for the long run. Now, once in a while, I'll get a patient, this is not that common, but maybe once or twice a month, a person who feels better if the program's bigger and faster. And they feel more gratified to spend a ton of money and buy everything they can and try everything at the same time. So if you get people like that, that's fine, but be a little on the careful side, Okay, now for those of you that joined us late, apparently I only got like halfway through this one because it's the first time I've ever done this lecture. And based on the number of people that signed up, I'm going to repeat this. So just stay on our email list. We'll send something out in the future and it'll be whatever we call this part 2. And I'll go through all the slides because they're each one valuable, but I misjudged the time and I misjudged the level of interest on this. So maybe we'll do a whole series of these. We'll make sure we do more. In the short term, before we wrap up, there's a mentorship that's starting in a week, or this week, next week. Contact the office and let's get a few of you guys signed up so we can get you trained. And if you're not using Rupa yet, check them out. It's a really good service. And I hope to join you soon. Oh, it's a mentorship mini-series, which generally means there's going to be more than one of these. So check your inbox. I'm sure you'll get notices about the next one of these talks. Okay? All right, we'll talk with you guys soon. Take good care now.